Now listen to me, my most beautiful friends. Babies, when they're born, they're crying. You know what it means? You don't have to teach children how to pray. This is one thing which is taught to them by God before they leave their heavenly abode. Because as much as you cannot live without breathing, you cannot exist without praying, without the secret of praying. Some parents think children are crying. They're not crying. Praying. And the most beautiful, deepest privilege of parents is that they can hear the first prayer of their own children. This is so holy, this is so deep. If parents are woken up with their children in the middle of the night and they're crying, but only know that each time they get up so fast and help their children and love them so much, that they would only know that they're hastening the rebuilding of the Holy Temple. If people who would see somebody else cry would run and tell them, I'll do anything for you because I heard your prayer, if they would only be aware that they're rebuilding the Holy Temple. What a world. You know, people talk about peace, but everybody knows peace has to do with the destruction of the temple. And the moment the Holy Temple will be rebuilt, there'll be peace in the world. In the moment people will hear each other pray, in the moment people will know that every word a human being utters is not a story, it's not a commandment, it's just praying. Every word we utter is praying. You know, my most beautiful friends, sometimes you wake up in the morning, you're not such a good mood, you give up on the world. Someone says to you, good morning. It's a statement. It's just talk. Won't help you. But sometimes you meet somebody special. They say to you, good morning. And all they do is praying for you. Let it be a good morning for you. You walk away. Suddenly life is so beautiful. The morning is good. Some people tell their children, you are beautiful. It's a statement. It doesn't make them beautiful. Some parents say to their little baby, you're so beautiful. Praying to God, please, make my child beautiful. They become beautiful. So today, Neil and I, Shlomo, would like to sing this here and talk to you about praying. You know, this is my sweetest friend in the Holy Temple. The most important part in the Holy Temple was the singing. Singing of the Holy Tribe, the Levites. The Levites, according to our tradition, 50,000 instruments and 100,000 voices. They would alternate every few weeks, would be in the Holy Temple day and night, and sing and play for the one, for the only one. Every note, every melody was the deepest prayer in the world. And those songs and those prayers reach so deep, reach into the deepest depths of every human being. You could not hear those melodies, those songs, those prayers, without returning to the one, the only one. But sadly enough, after the destruction of the Holy Temple, we did not sing the songs. How could we sing those holy songs on unholy soil? But everybody knows. How can you live without those holy melodies? Impossible. How can a Jew live one moment without hearing the melody of the holy Levites? And tell me, dearest brothers and sisters, don't you hear them late at night when you're dreaming? When your children are crying? Don't you hear the Levites? Don't you hear the 100,000 voices and the 50,000 instruments? Yes, I do. Give me one melody. Give me one note. Give me one song. I remember since I was a little boy, I was asking my father and my mother all the time, don't you remember one melody? They didn't know. I asked the great rabbis, please, teach me one melody. I was just about growing desperate, giving up. And one day I met an old chassid from Russia who spent 10 years in Siberia. A person who was ready to die and live for God 1,000,000 times a second. And I asked him, don't you know at least one melody? He smiled at me. He put his holy hand on my shoulder and says, my dear young man, let me tell you. When I was young, I met an old chassid. And he said he heard from old chassidim that the Baal Shem Tov says that the way we chant the prayers on high holidays, on the way we chant the prayers from day to day, it's a little bit, and maybe all of it from the holy temple. Let me chant for you and sing for you on Shabbos. After we receive a Shabbos sticker face, after the Spirit and the holiness of Shabbos descending upon us, we sing Midrash Sifre, Song of Shabbos, the song of the third temple, the song of the world to come, the song of the great Shabbos which will be tomorrow night, and the whole world will be one. And there we say Tzadi, the good people, the holy people, they grow like holy trees planted in the courtyard of God, receiving their nourishment, their water from God's holy fountain. Your children, my children, let them grow like holy trees in God's holy courtyard. Give me harmony, all of you, wherever you are. So my beautiful friends, would be so beautiful if you and I, all of us, would always have a little prayer song, a little note on our lips, in our hearts. You know, friends, when I was little, I met a chassid, Moishele. He taught me melody the way he was praying with, and it's so engraved in my heart. And I just hope and pray I should sing it until I leave this world, and I hope my children will continue to sing this melody. Let me first sing the melody. Sweetest friend, the holy temple was destroyed. It's not true. 3 times a day when we pray, we are in the holy temple. Listen to me, my most beautiful friends. The first holy temple was built because of Abraham. Sadly now it was destroyed. The second holy temple, because of Yitzchak of Isaac, sadly now it was also destroyed. But the third temple is for Holy Father Yaakov. It can't be destroyed, because our Holy Father Jacob initiated the evening prayer. Yaakov Avinu opened our hearts in the lowest, darkest night. Don't give up. God is with you. You're always in Yerushalayim. You're always in the Holy Temple. There's no power in the world who can destroy the Holy Temple. There is no power in the world who can estrange you to God. So this was in the lowest night. We Jewish people ever went through 1939 in Vienna. I was a little boy. It was awesome. It was frightful to go to the synagogue. So Shabbos morning we had services in our house. We lived in the suburb of Vienna, in Baden-Baden. 6 o'clock in the morning people would come in. They'd knock on the door. I would open the door. People with a frightened look would slip in through the door. The praying would take fast. It'd go so fast. 7:30 everybody wanted to be home. It was awesome to be on the street. One Shabbos morning, I remember until the Messiah is coming. There was a knock on the door. I opened the door, and a real Jew, the prince, the king, this little payas and the little beard. He was not afraid. He began singing, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, amen. you to go into the house. Because on Shabbos you're not in Vienna, you're not in Germany. On Shabbos you're in Yerushalayim, the holy city. On Shabbos the holy temple is right there. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, Shabbos. Came into the house, walked up and down, he didn't stop singing. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos. Then he turned to me, and his face was glowing and shining. It's the holiness of Shabbos. It's the holiness of the third temple. It's the holiness of the kind of a Jew who's always close to God. He says, what is your name? What is your name? And I didn't want to drop the melody, so I answered him back. My name is Shlomo. My name is Shlomo. Then I asked him, and what is your name? And what is your name? I remembered. He turned around to me, closed his eyes, and I could see he's turning his whole heart to God, to the only one. And this is what he said. My name is Moishele. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos. Moishele, good Shabbos is his name. Join me, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos. We had 10 people and began praying, and without saying anything bad, the cantor prayed so fast. After a few minutes we were already in the middle of Nishmas, the paramount prayer of Shabbos morning. We were reading out in this world, we are in paradise. And we tell God the whole world is so beautiful. Every living soul praises you. There's only one God. The whole world is with you. Every tongue cannot stop singing your praises. But there was no spirit in the air. There was no life to it. Inasmuch, according to Jewish law, you're not permitted to speak up in the middle of prayers. Moishele couldn't hold back anymore. He took the talis off from his face. He said, brothers, prayers have to reach heaven. Instead of praying up, you're praying down. This is not the way to pray. And then holy tears were rolling down his cheeks. He says, maybe, this is the last Shabbos. I hope not, I pray not. Maybe, this is the last time we see each other. Maybe this is the last time we have a chance to praise God, the only one. The one, the only one. This is the way to praise Him. The cantor said, I don't know how to do it better. Why don't you try? And Moishele stepped forward. And I swear to you, sweetest friends, until the Messiah comes, I don't think there'll be anybody in the world who'll say Nishmas like Moishele, the Shabbos. I Nishmas kol chai, tevorech es shimcho, Hashem Elokeinu, Hallelujah, kol boso, Hallelujah. Suddenly every word reached us, reached heaven. Suddenly the whole world was singing with him. The whole world was praising God. Suddenly there were no more Nazis, no more Germans, no more Auschwitz. Just paradise. The whole world was singing before God. Nobody dared looking at the clock. The prayers lasted for hours. After the praying was over, I remember my mother brought in wine and some cake to make Kiddush. And the whole time the windows were shut. It was dark in the room, just electric light. Moishele says, I'd like to make Kiddush, but you have to open the windows. I want to let the world know it's Shabbos. And you know, friends, I want you to know, those few minutes with Moishele changed my whole life. I remember standing next to him. People said, Moishele, we can't open the window. The people who pass by on the street want to kill us. Moishele says, do you know why they want to kill us? Because they don't know it's Shabbos. If I could only tell them it's Shabbos. Maybe they'll remember that we all are cousins, that we all are children of one God. I don't know what came over us. We opened the windows. Moishele held the cup of wine out of the window. People were walking down. People passed by on the street, looked up, and we went out to pray. And this is the way Moishele made Kiddush and joined me. I was sure I'm in This is the covenant between us and God. Forever, for generations to come. Moishele finished the Kiddush. Moishele made Kiddush. He ate with us. But the special thing, my brother and I, we were little children. But it got so deep into our heart. Moishele didn't stop singing his melody. During lunch, every word he uttered was the same melody. He spoke about everything in the world, always the same melody. Then he told us that he's on the blacklist and he cannot walk around on the street during the day, only at night. We heard later on that Moishele, whenever he heard that somebody is arrested, somebody is sent away to concentration camp, he would go at night and bring food to their wives and their children. And the Germans knew about it. They wanted to arrest him. There were signs all over the city. A big reward for somebody who catches Moishele. They caught him once. And someone hit him over the head, but somehow escaped. So Moishele told us he'll be back one night, maybe 3 or 4 in the morning. He said, I'll ring the bell 7 times. Let's go with Shabbos, 7 against 7. You'll know it's me. My brother and I waited for him. He was like our first big rabbi. He was so real and so holy. He was so special. Wednesday night later, I remember 4 o'clock in the morning, my brother and I Our beds were closest to the door. Yes, we heard it. 7 times, again 7 times. We opened the door Wednesday night. Moishele began singing, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. It was Wednesday, but for Moishele, it's always Shabbos. Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. I remember Moshe telling my brother and me that he is a follower of Reb Nachman Breslau, by the holy Reb Nachman, the great grandson of the holy Baal Shem. And Moishele Good Shabbos told us that in Lublin, where all the Breslau Chassidim would congregate before the Second World War, since they could not congregate anymore at the grave of Reb Nachman. And he told us that day he was told by an old Breslau Chassid that this is the melody with which Reb Nachman was praying. I asked a lot of Breslau Chassidim if they ever heard the melody. Nobody did. So I don't know. Was it Reb Nachman's melody or Moishele Good Shabbos? But please, 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 brothers and sisters, please pray with this melody, sing with this melody. Wish your children good morning with this melody. Say hello to the whole world with this melody. Sad enough, 2 weeks later, beautifully enough, we left Vienna. We never heard from Moishele again. Many years later, in Tel Aviv, someone stops me and says to me, Aren't you from Vienna? I says, yes. He says, do you remember Moishele? And you know, sweetest friend, there were a few 100,000 Jews in Vienna before the Second World War, but my first reaction was, you mean Moishele Good Shabbos? He says, yes. I couldn't believe it. I said, you mean Moishele Good Shabbos is alive, is somewhere? He says, come down. Come with me, let's go for a walk to the ocean. We went down to the Yarkon. It was just about twilight. And he says to me, I know that you're singing Moishele's melody all the time. Let me tell you the end of the story. Moishele had 2 children, 2 little children. He got himself a passport, an English passport. He was on the train with his wife and the 2 children. I was with them on the train. Moishele was sitting in a corner. And his wife said, Moishele, please, hide in the corner, they shouldn't see you. The train began moving. Moishele opened the window and he says to his wife, I grew up in Vienna. I have to say Good Shabbos one more time to the city. He opened the window and he began singing, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. This is not to make you sad, but just to give you strength. The saddest thing is one of them noticed him, blew his whistle, stopped the train. They dragged Moishele down from the train to the station. And in front of his wife and his children, he was beaten to death. And this Yidele tells me, I swear to you, Moishele did not stop singing the Shabbos to this very last second. Good Shabbos, 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 Yom Shikolei Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. Let me tell you the second part of the story, sweetest friends. Many years later, I was supposed to go from Tel Aviv to London. And suddenly, while we are in the air between Tel Aviv and Zurich, we hear on the loudspeaker, anybody who continues to London, let it be known to you there's an airstrike in London. The person who was sitting next to me says, why don't you come to Antwerp for Shabbos? And from Antwerp you can go on a ship to London, and you'll still make it for your concert Sunday night. Arrived in Antwerp, and I nearly know all this beautiful holy Yidden in Antwerp. The first Jew, the first holy Yidden who met me on the street invited me. While we were talking to each other, a very, very gentle, very, very princely looking man comes up to me and says, oh Shlomo, please come to my house for Shabbos. I says, you know, I'd love to come, but just this very good friend invited me. I said, but give me your number. If I do something Saturday night, I'll invite you. He walked away. And then I said to this person, who is he? He looks so familiar. I says, you don't know? He's the son of Moishele. Good Shabbos. Gewalt. Saturday night I called him up and I says, please, let's get together. We met in somebody's house who was singing. Suddenly I said to him, do you know their father's melody? But he was too little, he doesn't remember. He says, my father's melody? I don't even know my father had a melody. I had the privilege of teaching it to him, singing it to him. Good Shabbos, 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 good Shabbos. I'll never forget. Father's name was shaking with tears, was emotion. He hugged me and kissed me and said, thank you so much for coming to Antwerp. Thank you so much for giving me the melody to teach it to my children, to my grandchildren. And to you, my sweetest, most beautiful friends, brothers and sisters. It just came to my heart a few months ago. I wanted to remember what was the last thing I heard from Moishele. And I remember before he walked out the door, the last time we saw him, he was singing and showing me wherever you are. Tzure Yisrael, Kumo Yezras Yisrael. God of Israel, please redeem Israel. Keep your promise that you will redeem us. Join me, Tzure Yisrael, Tzure Yisrael, Kumo Yezras Yisrael. Keep your promise. So to you and your children, to God in heaven, to the Holy Land, to all of Israel, and to the whole world, let it be, let it be. Good Shabbos, 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 good Shabbos.